Good afternoon. I'm Cindy Griffin with Homeopathy Center of Houston, and I want to welcome all of you to our webinar on weathering cold, flu, coughs, the whole season with homeopathy. And if you will excuse me just a moment, I think I'm going to kill a light that is glaring, and I will set up our screen share. And we are just going to jump right in here. And I'm going to take myself out of the picture because I don't want you to miss any of my notes. So there we go. Hopefully you can all hear me. And I did not think that I would be my own show and tell today, but I'm actually walking proof that homeopathy can definitely shorten the duration of the common cold. I came down with a cold on Saturday, and today I'm feeling good. You may hear a little congestion left over, but overall, it was quite a cold, and I did follow the directions that I'm going to share with you today. So hopefully you will find this to be a very helpful webinar. I really, we want people to be comfortable to use homeopathy on their own. And that's a reason that we are putting together this little kind of a mini series. We started in September. We did a webinar on childhood ear infections, which actually it doesn't just apply to children. It's anyone who might get ear pain or an ear infection. And this is our second in the series. And while we're not going to go in huge depth on each of the remedies, it's a smattering of information that at least I want you to be confident to try using homeopathy for yourself and for your family. So let's get started. Just a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, try to do what you can to free up as many resources in your computer. So close everything except this window in your browser. Make sure you're not running a lot of background programs because that will free up your computer resources. And if somebody else is streaming video on another piece of equipment in your home, you might ask them to take a break from it if they can, because that will also eat up your bandwidth and you won't have as good an experience. And of course, there's always the legal housekeeping that has to be done. First of all, we at Homeopathy Center of Houston are professional homeopaths, and we are not, and we don't represent ourselves to be medical doctors. Nothing in this presentation should be construed as medical advice for diagnosing, for treatment, for mitigation, for prevention of disease, and the guidelines are just educational and not intended for a replacement for individualized oversight by a professional homeopath or by a licensed physician. So if you or your child has a serious illness or pain, please immediately consult with a qualified professional. We are professional homeopaths, and as such, we provide consultations in homeopathic medicine only, which is an alternative medicine system with over 200 years, actually over 210 years of safe, practical health answers. So any of the information here is provided for your own educational and informational purposes only. And this isn't individualized consultation. And certainly if you need help, please do seek out a professional, whether you go medically or whether you go to a professional homeopath, but do seek professional help for serious illness in all cases. Okay, let's just do a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. A few little tips for prevention, which I have to admit I broke one of. Dosing tips for homeopathy, which is something that's kind of hard to come by these days, I've noticed in, in other people's presentations. And I think that's one of the mysteries that I hope we can make it a lot less mysterious. We're going to talk about a number of single remedies for colds, for flu, as well as for coughs. and also point you to some of our favorite over-the-counter combination remedies and some recommendations of some of the things to keep on hand, as well as having a special offer at the end on our remedy kit and some extras for you to have on hand. So let's just jump right in here. Hopefully everybody can hear. Let's talk first of all about what we can do to help prevent getting sick in the first place. The first thing is get adequate rest. And I admit that that is probably my downfall, excuse me, downpour. Yes, it's also raining. It's my downfall because we were moving our office from one location to a new office after 15 years. And I think between stirring a few little dust bunnies and inhaling those and just the sheer energy of having to, you know, all of us pitch in and do some pretty hefty physical labor to get ready and then to dig out from that move. That was probably what kicked me over the edge. Another thing is drink plenty of water. This is also an area that I have to remind myself frequently, and my business partner, Linda Lanham, who is also here to help field some of the questions that might come up. Water is a part of every single cell that we have. It is a part of respiration. It is a part of digestion. It is a part of elimination. And without it, we can definitely get sick. So drink plenty of water, whether you are currently well or whether you are ill. Get as much sun exposure on as much skin as possible, which I understand for those of you who live a little north of our Houston area, that may be a little tough to come by in the winter, but the more sun exposure on the skin you get, as well as outside without sunglasses, it builds vitamin D3 in the system. Unfortunately, a lot of our health issues these days come from sun phobia, and certainly you don't want to get sunburned. But 20 minutes a day will actually create about 20,000 units of vitamin D3, which is pretty incredible that our body can do that all by itself. But if you can't, vitamin D3 supplement. You do not want vitamin D2, which is what is fortifying our milk and our bread and that sort of thing. That is the wrong kind of vitamin D. You want vitamin D3. It is a huge immune booster. So if you live in the north or cold climates, then you might want to supplement with vitamin D3 as well. Also, taking vitamin C, and I would say between 1,000 and 5,000 milligrams, and work up slowly with kids, and as much as 5,000 to 10,000 milligrams a day for adults can be really, really helpful. Also, avoid non-organic and genetically modified organism containing foods. If it is organic, it cannot, by law, be GMO. But that said, they're also finding GMO contamination in some totally certified organic crops simply because the wind blows the various pollens and so forth, and they are getting harder to find. But the more you can avoid it, the healthier your system will be for every reason. Also, we get sick when we have a heavily carb-oriented diet. So fewer carbs and more fruits and veggies are usually very, very helpful. And now here's where we jump into homeopathy specifically. I actually personally take Phytolacca, which is a homeopathic flu remedy from France, 2 to 3 times a week during cold and flu season, or if I'm traveling, so I'm going to be like in an airplane or something where I am rebreathing everyone else's air and it's not particularly well filtered. So Phytolacca seems to just boost the body to be both resistant, but it's also a great flu remedy. And it's something you can buy at any health food store. We also sell it in our practice. So if you can't find it, we usually have it on hand. and you can call our office. It is something that we can sell over the counter. So that is just a little bit of prevention. Now, here's some just quick potency and dosing tips. And again, this is not going to teach you how to be a homeopath, but this is going to at least help eliminate some of that mystery. For acute illnesses, and by acute, I mean something that you've just been exposed to and you've caught something, you know, you've caught a cold, you've caught the flu, then low potencies are going to be more immediately effective. So 6C, 9C, 30C, or most X potencies are actually the ones that you're going to most commonly find in over-the-counter homeopathic products. Okay, we've got a quick question about what I just said about 2 to 3 times a week. The oscillococcinum is actually tiny little granules, sugar granules, and usually just 2 or 3 of those little pellets or little granules is a dose. So I should have added that to this slide. Less is more in homeopathy. 1 or 2 pellets versus a whole tube, which I'll probably catch heck for from the manufacturer, but 1 or 2 pellets is enough. It is a dose. And more than that, you're basically, if you take it all at once, then you're going to find that it is just a waste of the product. So for acute illnesses like colds or flu, most of the time, these single remedies that I'm going to talk about, as well as the combinations, are going to include low potencies. They are less dilute, so they act on more current issues and are going to be a little faster acting for something that you've just caught. So that's, you know, it's some of the math that's involved in how we make the homeopathic remedies. They are made by a process called dilution and succussion serially. So the number is how many times it's been diluted, and the C or the X determines whether it is diluted 1 to 100 for a C potency or 1 to 10 with each of those dilutions. So all you really need to know is the lower the number, then the closer it is to current issues, and the closer it is to the crude substance that we start with. And again, there's more information on this all over the internet, and I don't want to dwell on it. But it is good to know that lower potencies for common current issues. So also, the low potencies can be and really should be dosed very frequently. So just a little tip here. 1 or 2 pellets or drops, if you're using liquids, is an adequate dose. Or if you do a water bottle, you can put just a few pellets of each of the remedies you're using into a water bottle and sip on it, you know, every 10 to 20 minutes, something like that. Less is always more, and a larger dose is no more effective, whether it's in water, whether it's a drop form, or whether it's in pellets or tablets, is no more useful than much more. And if you use more, you're basically wasting your money. So our favorite method for acute care, so something like a cold or the flu, is quite simply to use, if you're using, whether you're using single remedies or combination remedies, or even a combination of single remedies from a remedy kit, you can just add a few pellets or drops of the remedy, or 1 tablet if you have something that's in tablet form, into a bottle of spring water or well-filtered tap water. We are fans of the Berkey. Basically, it's a charcoal filtration system, and then you can add a fluoride and chlorine filter as well to it. So if you've got a good filtration system or just a bottle of spring water, pre-bottled spring water, that is perfectly fine. You don't have to, in fact, you really don't want to use distilled water because it actually has kind of had the molecular system of the water toyed with through the distillation process. So we suggest spring water or filtered tap. So put a few pellets of whatever the remedy may be, whether it's for a cold, for flu, for bruising, a trauma, whatever it might be, into a water bottle, and then sip that mixture very frequently, every 15 to 60 minutes if the symptoms are intense, like a high fever, or if something is really painful or uncomfortable, or if you're having, if your child seems like they're breathing hard because their sinuses are congested. I know with babies, that's always scary and they sound like they're going to die. Quite frequently, that's just simply the body working its way through things. So you give a few drops to a sip very frequently. And then as the symptoms improve, you decrease the frequency. And it's pretty cool that the body will actually sort of self-regulate on that dosing, because as the symptoms improve, you're going to naturally spread out the doses. But the cool thing about homeopathy to me is that you cannot overdose on a homeopathic product. You are much more likely to underuse it than to overuse it. And with this water bottle approach, we find it's very gentle, but at the same time, it's also very, very effective. All right, here we jump into the meat of this thing. How to choose a homeopathic remedy for a cold. First of all, you want to match all of the symptoms to the correct remedy, not just one or two, and certainly not just, oh, I have a cold, I should take this remedy. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of homeopathic remedies that have various combination of symptoms that would be fitting to take for a cold. But different colds are going to look different in different people. And so the key to homeopathy, the word itself means homoios pathos. Homoios means the same as, pathos, the symptoms. So you want to choose the remedy that most closely matches the symptoms in a different person. And it's that individualization that is how professional homeopaths look at it, and how you as a home prescriber would want to try to look at it. Everybody does not get the same cold in the same way. You might look at your child and they get a sore throat and an earache, and your husband gets a deep cough, or maybe you get it and it just lingers forever, but nothing is particularly, awful about it. Everybody experiences it differently, and so different people may need different remedies for different colds or different flus. So you want to most closely match the overall symptoms of the sick person with the symptoms that a remedy will actually correct. So just as I said, we match the symptoms of the sick person with the remedy that is made from a substance that, if you took too much of the crude, undiluted, quote, overdose form, which is what healthy volunteers have done so that we know what remedy does what, then it would bring on those same symptoms. But as a homeopathic, highly diluted form, it will actually cure those same symptoms. And I use the word cure as a homeopathic scientific term. I am not a medical doctor, and I cannot promise a cure. But our documented remedy symptoms have been documented for 200 years plus in huge volumes, and many, many of them, called the Materia Medica, which lists each remedy by remedy and all the symptoms that that substance brings on in a healthy volunteer, and hence those that it will eliminate in a sick person who has that same combination of symptoms. So we as homeopaths work with the totality of symptoms. We look at all of the symptoms, not just a diagnostic or a general term. We look at the physiological symptoms, of course, that would be usual for that person that would be unusual for that person if they were healthy. So if they're healthy, they wouldn't typically necessarily be running a fever, I sincerely hope. But we also look at whether that fever, maybe, are they thirsty or are they hungry? Aches and pains, where? What sort of pain? Is it a headache? Is it a general body ache? Is it in the joints? Is it bone deep? Is it muscular? What are their eye, ear, nose, and throat symptoms? What are their breathing symptoms? So those are just a few things for you to consider. And I'll cover a few of those things as we go through these remedies today. Also, look at their emotional or behavioral symptoms that may be unusual. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're whining. Are they crying? Are they forlorn? Do they have fears that they'll never get well? Or are they maybe withdrawing, where usually they're kind of a social butterfly? All these things become a part of this totality of the symptoms that helps you narrow down to the right remedy. Also, we look at something called modalities. What are the things that make it better or worse? For instance, with temperature, is it better with warmth? Do they want to be covered up, or would they rather be uncovered? Are they seeking a warm room? Are they wanting warm drinks or cold drinks? Are they better with cool or fresh air? Also, time. Are they better in the morning, the midday, bedtime, or the middle of the night? Or are they worse? Midday, morning, midday, bedtime, middle of the night? Are there certain hours that it's better or worse? Now, I'm not going to delve into all of those little details, but that's just an idea. As you get, homeopathy has a nasty habit of drawing people in, and as you start digging deeper, you're going to want to learn some of these things. So you can buy a Materia Medica online and start learning the remedies. But we're going to give you kind of a quick overview today so that at least you won't hopefully feel overwhelmed or paralyzed by this whole matching process. But this is the basis of all of homeopathy, from classical single remedy homeopathy, even through sequential homeopathy, which our practice specializes in. So don't just do nothing. Make your best guess and then try it. Because if it doesn't work, you can always change. And if it seems that several remedies all seem to fit the symptoms, or you're not sure, or maybe there's a fever, and maybe there's, a sore throat, and maybe there's an earache, and maybe there's a cough, there is absolutely no sin, although my classical homeopathic counterparts would say otherwise. There is not only no sin, but there is great benefit to just combining them. Don't be afraid of putting remedies together. You're not going to ruin everything. You're not going to ruin the case, and you might actually start feeling better. And that's the whole point. And to combine them, use our water bottle approach. It's both gentle, but it also constantly is nudging the system towards getting better. So instead of just giving it, every few hours, you're getting a little bit of a dose each time that you take the remedy. And ideally, you should actually smack that bottle with the top on, of course, smack it against your hand a few times, about 4 or 5 times, in between each dose that you take or that you give your child. A friend of, one of my mentors actually described, if you take a single dry dose of a remedy, it's a little like sending the tidal wave up on the beach, and it's going to kind of wipe everything clean, but it's not always gentle. If you do a water bottle approach and you smack it against your hand, that's called succussing. Then it's more like the gentle waves as the tide is gradually coming in. Just each one pulls off a few more layers of the symptoms. So just be very, very gentle. And this makes homeopathy, which is gentle medicine anyway, even gentler. And we find that and our clients have found over the many years that it is really very effective. So again, there's no sin in putting remedies together or in using combination remedies from the health food store. And frankly, we use them ourselves, and that's some of what I did over the past 2 days when I was sick. And I wouldn't be doing this webinar if they didn't work. I can tell you that colds before homeopathy with me would stick around for several days. Then they'd go into a sinus infection and then bronchitis, and I would be sick for a month or more, I dare say. So, and I'm 2 days out, and yeah, I'm a little tired and I'm a little congested, but I don't feel bad. So, literally hundreds of medicines, of homeopathic medicines or remedies may be the best fit for various types of colds. We're going to cover the most commonly needed single remedies today, but again, there is no sin in trying them and changing if it doesn't work, and there is no sin in putting them in a water bottle in combination. There's really no right or wrong way to do homeopathy. It is what works. When you find the remedy that works, stick with it. If it quits working, change it. If it doesn't work after a short period of an hour or two, then you may still want to change it, or you may want to combine. So let's talk about some of the most common single remedies for colds. This first one, Allium cepa, which is made from red onion, is actually credited in our Materia Medica as the single remedy that covers probably more symptoms of the common cold and hay fever than almost any other remedy that we have in our entire Materia Medica of thousands, several thousands, probably 4,000 to 5,000 remedies. So it is a good remedy to have on hand. The causational issues are part of what we look at. So if the illness, in this case the cold, was caused by exposure to damp, cold weather, that might be a good reason to think about Allium cepa. The symptoms are simply resembling those that are caused by peeling an onion. You've got burning nose, a lot of sneezing, watery, burning eyes. Red-rimmed eyes is a very particular pointer to this remedy. One of my first single remedy cures, quite literally, was a very squeaky clean little baby that the mom called. She didn't want to do antibiotics, and her baby was about 6 months old and was just then getting her first cold. And she brought her in, and the first thing I noticed was that the baby's eyes had red rims. So the conjunctiva, the inside of the eyelids, but you could see it on the outside, were very red rimmed. And she had little tears coming, and she wasn't crying. They were just tearing. And her nose had a burning discharge that was actually kind of turning the upper lip red a little bit. And we went in and sat down, and I kind of observed for about 2 minutes, and I said, I'll be right back. And I went to my remedy room, and I brought in a single dose of a couple of pellets of Allium cepa, and I handed them to the mom in a little packet. And I said, would you just give those to your daughter real quickly? Because we do not administer. We are not allowed to do that. And so I handed it to the mom. She said, sure. And she popped it in, and it was Allium cepa, and only Allium cepa. Within 5 minutes, this little girl quit with the tearing. She had been sneezing almost the whole time up until she got the remedy, and I think she sneezed about twice more. And in the next 15 minutes, I sat there and I just started grinning, and as the mom and I were talking about the child's history and so forth, because she was a new client to me. And the mom, I said, I think we've already got it. Mom looked at me and she went, what? I said, look at her. Literally one single remedy. I said, now, I'm going to send you home with a dropper. And if the symptoms come back, you can certainly redose. And that was the end of it. The next time I heard about her, I don't remember. It seems like she had a little bump on the head or something. So it was kind of one of my fun single remedy recoveries. Now, Allium cepa also is great where there are coughs, colds, or headaches that are worse in a warm room, better in open air, and then get worse again on returning to a warm room. So there's that modality thing. The cough of Allium cepa is a tickling cough that kicks up from a tickling in the larynx, and I do know how to spell larynx. My apologies for the typo. I was adding some of these yesterday when I was still a little bit brain fogged. There is a constant hacking to relieve that tickle. So it's just kind of a that kind of a thing. Maybe a little bit of a hoarse cough, or there may be a huskiness or a hoarseness of the voice. And that cough is definitely made worse when they inhale cold air. So somebody who doesn't take my advice about resting when they're sick and goes out into the cold and inhales, and immediately they start this tickling cough, then you might, again, want to look at Allium cepa. The fever in Allium cepa may be a flitting heat. So it's moving about. It's like the head feels hot, and then the body feels hot, and they sweat very easily and very profusely. Lots and lots, just sweat pouring off. And they tend to be very thirsty during the fever. So there are just some ideas on Allium cepa. And this is about as deep as we're going to go with most of these remedies. But Allium cepa is probably the #1 cold remedy in all of homeopathy. It's also for hay fever again. All right, the next one, Arsenicum album, is actually a white oxide of arsenic. Now, usually you cannot buy this below a 30C, and our remedy kits include all of the remedies that I'm talking about here, primarily in a 30C. A couple of them are actually in different potencies. But Arsenicum album is made from arsenic. There are kind of 3 pillar symptoms to Arsenicum album. Chilly, exhausted, and restless. This is an amazing remedy. It covers a lot of territory, but for colds in particular, let's talk about that. Generally, there may be some anxiety about, I can't be sick. I don't have time to be sick, which, of course, none of us do anymore, but this is more of a true anxiety, not just, I don't have time for this and I'm disgusted by it. This is, I can't do this. I have to get well immediately. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be sick and I may die. And actually that I may die is a part of the mental picture. They are often exhausted by the illness and very restless, which gets worse at night. And the pains tend to be burning pains, like burning elbows and knees or burning discharges. And also there may be a wheezing, asthma-like breathing, a little bit of a shortness of breath. The causations often are because of exposure to maybe bad food or water, traveling to high altitudes, or after a fright or an emotional trauma. So if any of those things have happened just prior to the onset, think about arsenicum. The time modality, it's worse very periodically. It's like I feel better, and then I feel worse. And then I feel better, and there's not really a pattern, except almost always, if the symptoms are worse after midnight, Arsenicum album, I would say this is probably the second most useful remedy for colds. I see we've got a few of you who have worked with Arsenicum. It is a great remedy. It's also a great remedy for a lot of other things, which I'll talk about in a minute. There is a dry cough with arsenicum, again, that is usually worse after midnight or from lying on the back, and definitely worse from inhaling like cigarette smoke or, unfortunately, California and Texas have been notorious the last few years for wildfires. So if you're exposed to that, it will often make that cough worse. And it's better from sitting up and worse from drinking, which is a little unusual. In homeopathy, we have what we call the strange, rare, and peculiar symptoms, where certain remedies are indicated by, gee, it's a little weird that drinking would make a dry cough worse. Then you want to think of arsenicum, because that is a part of that picture. The eyes tend to burn, and they may look either sunken and dark or protruding, and they often have very hot, acrid, burning tears. And there is a very thin, watery nasal discharge, similar to Allium cepa, but it almost always tends to redden the skin underneath, under the nose and around the eyes, and a lot of sneezing, nasal colds that then descend very quickly to the chest. This is also a, quote, chest cold remedy. It's a great remedy. If your colds tend to go into a cough in the chest. And here we have fevers with chills. The body may feel cold in spite of the fever to the touch, and the fever, even if the fever is fairly high, the body itself may feel cold, and the head may feel warm. and this is not uncommon with flu, where people are actually running a fairly high fever if you take their temperature in their mouth. But if you touch their body or their arms, parts of the body may feel very, very cold to the touch. So that's another sign of that arsenicum would be a good remedy. There is complete and utter exhaustion, even a delirium. And again, this can be worse after midnight. Either the exhaustion or the fever goes up, or they're a little delirious. You know, they may be picking flowers off of the wallpaper that aren't there after midnight. And a mental state of great fear of suffocation. Arsenicum is often used by professionals where there is a deep chest cold, where there is difficulty breathing, but with that difficulty, there is a fear of suffocation, or maybe even the fear is much greater than the apparent outward actual intensity of that suffocation fear. And the burning pains feel better with heat. And there can be a sore throat, but it's more a swollen throat. It's very constricted, but it burns until they almost feel like they can't swallow liquids or food. And here's just an extra here, a little bonus tip. Arsenicum album, never leave home without it. It is actually in a combination remedy called Cold Calm, which I'll be talking about shortly. This is the quintessential remedy for food poisoning. So illness of any sort, such as we used to call it Montezuma's Revenge. We lived in Texas. We would go into Mexico, and if we ate bad food in college, we would get severe diarrhea, grumbling of the stomach, maybe nausea and vomiting. And it is possible with many flus to have nausea and vomiting. So again, arsenicum can be a great flu remedy as well. But I'm not going to cover it so much under flus because I'm trying to cover a lot of remedies. All right, so the next remedy is Nux Vomica, or poison nut. It's usually the illness is caused by either overdoing, whether it's overwork or not getting enough sleep because you're working late, or staying up doing a paper for college or whatever, or from overeating, overdrinking, or abuse of alcohol, or sheer exhaustion from lack of sleep because you're pushing too hard. So that's a real common thing. Nux Vomica is actually a great hangover remedy as well. There's a little bonus if there are any college kids out there. We used to laugh about the college kids that would be sent off to college by their parents with a remedy kit, and they'd run out of Nux Vomica their first semester because all their friends would go out drinking and have hangovers. So Nux Vomica is a great remedy for a lot of things. It's also a good food poisoning remedy. It's for both constipation and diarrhea, so it kind of helps regulate that system. But for colds, there is nasal congestion, and it's that weird kind of, you lay on one side and the lower side is congested, and then you turn over and it'll move to the other side. So there's one of those strange, rare, and peculiar pointers to Nux Vomica. The nose may be very stuffy. It's worse at night and outdoors, and it alternates between the two nostrils, the two sides of the nose. There are paroxysms of sneezing. It's like you can't stop sneezing. It'll be several sneezes in a row, and then you kind of have a long break from it. And that is a pointer to Nux Vomica. The eyes may be bloodshot, and you often see that with somebody who's had too much alcohol the next morning. But it does look like somebody who's been drinking, even though they just have a cold or the flu. And they get tears from either one side, one eye or the other, but typically not both at once. And it's not one eye over the other. It's not either right or left. It's one or the other. And irritation, dry burning, and almost an itching in the inner corner of the eye. Again, these are all kind of those strange, rare, and peculiar things that we look at when we're trying to match symptoms. The body tends to be burning hot, especially the face in the fever. But they feel like every time they move, or if they get uncovered, they get a chill. So chilliness during the whole course of the fever, it can kind of come and go with no real pattern, except that they are just always chilled and they are thirsty with that chill. There may be a headache with Nux Vomica, similar to that of a hangover. It's often in the back of the head or it's over the eyes with a dizziness, like a hangover, as if a nail were driven in at the base of the head and the back. Now that's a little unusual, but with flu, you often see that. So this can also be a flu remedy. Or a frontal headache where they feel like they want to press it against the wall. You know, they just want to push on that headache. And often a signal for the need of Nux is when they lie down, they can feel their heart palpitating or pounding. And it feels like the chest is somewhat constricted, not like a breathing type of constriction necessarily. It just feels like the chest is very tight whenever they breathe. The cough feels as if something is tearing loose within the lungs. I don't think I need to describe that. I have had that before. It feels like somebody is ripping your lung out from the inside. I have had Nux Vomica colds and coughs. And you can use this just for the cough, even if you don't currently have the other cold symptoms. You can use any of these remedies for single symptoms as well as all of these. All right, so let's jump into some single remedies for flu. The first one is called Baptisia tinctoria, which is from wild indigo. It is a great flu remedy for when flu is really going around, where everybody you talk to is having is coming down with the flu, and it all kind of looks alike. Of course, they're going to be individualized symptoms, but it's just a great remedy, and you'll see why. And a little bonus, if you are doing international travel and you're required to take a typhoid vaccine and you have a bad reaction to it, Baptisia is a really good remedy for that. It's actually a typhoid remedy. It was used very extensively by Hahnemann 200 years ago to treat typhoid. So any of the symptoms that look like typhoid, which flu can definitely look like, especially if you have that have diarrhea from it, then you want to think about Baptisia. Generally, people look extremely ill. Like you can just look at them and know something's badly wrong. Their body is very lifeless. They feel exhausted, but the mind can't seem to shut down. And yet they aren't really coherent with all their thoughts. It takes a great deal of effort. So busy, but kind of all over the place. A little ADHD going on in the head, but the body can't keep up with the hyperactive part of it. There's also a great soreness and heaviness and aching of the muscles. So it's like their body feels heavy and they're just exhausted. And kind of a strange thing is they are so sore that as tired as they are, when they lay on the bed, it feels too hard to them. It almost makes the soreness worse. But weakness pervades everything else. They just feel too weak to move. With the ears, there's not usually ear pain with this one, but the hearing seems dulled. It's very difficult for them to hear what's going on around them, and they get very withdrawn because of it frequently. Their eyelids are at half mast. They're very heavy, and they feel swollen. They may not look swollen, but the eyes themselves, their eyeballs, feel very sore, and they're very light sensitive. And the head, this is a distinctive symptom that would indicate Baptisia. Their head feels too large and heavy, and it almost feels numb. And sometimes they'll say, it feels like the brain inside my skull feels sore. And kind of a behavioral thing is they're so heavy-eyed that they often will actually fall asleep while people are talking to them. And maybe you've experienced this. I have. The muscles are achy, sore, and bruised feeling. And again, so much so that the bed feels too hard. They feel almost like they've been beaten up. That is how sore and painful the muscles can be with Baptisia. So if you've got a flu with really, really, muscle soreness, then Baptisia is a great remedy. There may be breathing that is difficult, not so much from congestion or mucus as from just an overall feeling of weakness. The chest feels tight and compressed. If they stand up, it actually feels better. So here you go. You're too weak, but you feel better standing up. You're too weak, but the bed feels too hard. And they want to go to an open window in order to breathe. They like that fresh air. Now, sometimes where Baptisia is involved, there may be a nosebleed. And as I said, there may even be elimination symptoms such as diarrhea. There can be the nosebleeds will have very dark blood, quite a bit of it. They have a dull pain at the root of the nose, so where it attaches to the rest of the skull. Just kind of a dull aching there. And they sneeze, and the sneezing, even though they may not have other cold symptoms necessarily, they have that feeling as if they had a severe cold. There is a fullness and a swollen sensation in the sinuses, but with little or no nasal discharge. So this isn't a wet, runny nose kind of remedy. This is more for where you're congested, but you really don't have much to blow out of your nose. And there is also a stiffness, especially the back and the hips, so that walking is actually kind of painful. So it's a great remedy for a lot of flus. Now, Eupatorium perfoliatum is another one of my favorites for those deep bone pains of flu that is so common. It's generally for flu or colds with bone deep pain, a sensation almost as if your bones were broken within your limbs. It's just a violent aching pain everywhere, but deep, deep, deep. And often you have moaning, you have anxiety, and they're very despondent and yet very restless. They want to withdraw, and yet they just, they're busy. Their body can't settle down, a little like Arsenicum in some ways. But that bone deep pain is your number one symptom that points to Eupatorium. If they say, oh man, I hurt so badly, every bone hurts, instead of all my muscles hurt. A lot of pain in the back of the neck and between the shoulders with Eupatorium. A lot of sighing. And they may say, I almost feel like I'm homesick even though I'm at home with my family. So those are kind of some of the strange symptoms that would point you to Eupatorium, the unique symptoms. The eyes are very sore, but there is a definite aversion to light, and the eyeballs are actually aching with the headache. There is a great thirst for cold water, especially before and during a chill. There's a hoarse cough or a hoarseness with the cough. The chest is very sore, and they have to support the chest when they cough. It's usually a loose cough, sort of a bronchitis-like cough that is worse at night. And the bronchioles themselves feel sore when they cough. So it's not just, that general, I feel like my chest hurts. It is literally, you feel the bronchioles as you are coughing because they're so sore. Getting back to the fever, very chilly, but especially worse between 7 and 9 a.m. And the chill is preceded by a great thirst for cold water and a lot of soreness of the bones. And they know the chill is coming because of the great thirst, which remains while they're chilly. So, and then it kind of settles down as the chilliness goes away. So does the thirst. All right, sore throats are often a part of colds, so we're going to jump into this. The first remedy for sore throat that we typically think about is Belladonna, which is deadly nightshade. It is for a sore throat with a high, sudden onset fever. The throat pain may be very sudden onset. Anytime you have a sudden onset fever with throbbings or high fevers, you want to think about Belladonna. And again, they may have hallucinations because there is a very high fever that will cause them to go, talking to people that aren't there, or, maybe picking flowers off of the wallpaper. So that's not uncommon. It's scary, but it doesn't mean that somebody's going to die. It just means they've got a very high fever and it came on so suddenly that the brain can't keep up. The sore throat is a dry, hot throat. The tonsils may be enlarged if you look at them, and they may have white spots. A bright redness to the throat and the tonsils, and often it's right-sided that is worse. The throat pain often will extend to the ears. And if they breathe, you notice that there's a dry, hot breath as they exhale from the mouth. The eyes tend to look very shiny and glazed, often because the pupils are dilated. So you see kind of a, vacancy almost. And the eyes look very dark because often the pupils are dilated. And with that can go some very extensive light sensitivity. Respiration is very fast, short, and quick. When my son used to get sore throats, he would be perfectly fine 1 minute, and then out of nowhere, he would start running a very high fever. And one of the things I always noticed was that he would breathe very fast, very quick, and very short inspirations. So wouldn't be breathing deeply. You see this often in babies who are running a fever, even if it's not a high fever, that short, fast, quick inhalation. So they're just kind of almost panting like a dog, but without the tongue sticking out. That is a sign that they need belladonna. Okay, Linda, I'm going to answer this about seizures. Belladonna and all other homeopathic remedies will never cause a seizure. It is the rapid onset of a fever or the rapid decline of a fever that can bring on a seizure. Often what we find is that parents get very scared when their child has a high fever, and they may give them a homeopathic remedy, but at the same time, they may be also giving them acetaminophen or ibuprofen, which can bring that fever down very suddenly. I dare say every child I've ever worked with that had a febrile seizure, it was not because they were given belladonna. It was because they were also being given a drug that a seizure can be caused either by the fever going up very suddenly, but it can also happen when it's going down and the brain simply can't keep up with it. It kind of throws the brain into a shock. I typically use belladonna in a 30C. I have never, frankly, I can't remember a single person in our practice who ever had a seizure after taking belladonna. I have seen the fevers go up somewhat briefly after they give the belladonna. It's called an aggravation by a lot of people. What it really is a healing response. It takes 102.9 degrees Fahrenheit fever for about 24 to 48 hours to burn up something like strep. That is a medical documented fact. That is not something I made up. And so that's part of why often kids with sore throats, if it's from strep, if they have strep throat, it is often from strep. And that high fever is a part of the body eliminating the strep itself. A high fever is scary for people, but it's also a part of the healing process. And it's usually where drugs are involved that we see a child go into a seizure when they have a fever. But homeopathic remedies, by their nature, cannot bring on a new pathology. Either the pathology is there and it may be a part of using a drug. All I can say is I don't worry about using lower potencies of belladonna. I can tell you that right now the FDA is looking at belladonna and everything in homeopathy because safe medicine is catching on in the world, and heaven forbid that we should be growing, but homeopathy is growing, and they are looking for anything in the world to use as scare tactics. But I'm here to tell you, nobody's ever died of a homeopathic remedy. And to my knowledge, I don't know of any child who has taken a low potency of a homeopathic remedy and had a problem with it. Whether it was the teething remedy that got headlines, which of course, you know, the other 4,500 remedies have never had headlines because of all the good things they've done without killing anybody. But that's my personal opinion. I am not a doctor. That is not a medical opinion, but it is a professional observation, and it is a personal observation. So that said, if your child has a high fever, call a professional. If you're worried, you can certainly give Belladonna in a 30C or higher. Let's see, our kit, I'm actually looking at our kit right now. Our kit includes a 30 and a 200C. Because we found those to be very, very useful with our clients. But not because we're in fear of lower potencies of it. It's just simply experientially, they both work. Yeah, the bad press about the Highlands teething tablets, they're looking at Belladonna, they're looking at Nux Vomica. Nobody I know of has ever died from a homeopathic remedy, high potency, low potency, or otherwise. So it is a crock of you know what over trying to give homeopathy a bad name. All right, so back to our remedy. You'll notice that many of our remedies are actually from highly toxic substances, but that dilution factor is the reason that homeopathy is completely safe. There is nothing poisonous there. I did the math one time on what the Belladonna 5X, which was what was, I believe, 5X or 6X in the Highlands teething tablets, and how much, I looked up the science as to how much atropine, which is the quote active ingredient according to medical science of Belladonna, is actually contained in a Belladonna 5X, and it is 1 to 10 to the negative more zeros than I could literally fit on a single spaced 10 font page. That is how little atropine was in that 5X. There is absolutely no harm in it. But I am not the FDA, so, you know, they have the right to look at anything for safety. But I'm going to tell you, from my opinion, you know, use a 30C or a 200C. It will be very effective. All right. So, sorry, I get on a soapbox about these things, and I shouldn't do that. All right. So, with Belladonna, sore throat, hot, dry, and large tonsils, maybe white spots, but bright, bright red. And often that throat pain will actually extend to the ear. This is also a good ear pain remedy. And then you've got that very painful larynx, so it hurts to talk. And we're going really long here, but I don't want to miss anything. Here is a bonus here. With the fever of Belladonna, there's a very, very red face, even the body, and there's a radiating heat from the whole body. Belladonna is really great for second-degree sunburns, so there's your little bonus. It actually will reconnect. Okay, all of these notes, all of this this PowerPoint will be a part of the replay. So if you've missed a little bit of it because of connection issues, it'll all be there and you'll get the replay notice and link. All right, one more sore throat remedy, Phytolacca decandra, or pokeweed. This is for a sore throat that is so painful that speaking really, really hurts, to the point they go, I can't talk, it hurts. So often they will whisper with Phytolacca. And the difference between the Phytolacca and the Belladonna sore throat is the color of the throat. With Belladonna, it is a bright, angry red. With Phytolacca, it's a dark, almost bluish red. It almost looks like liver, very, very deep red. And there is a roughness in the throat, and the throat feels constricted and narrow and hot. It may even have a sensation that there's a lump when they swallow. There often is a shooting pain from the throat that will extend to the ears. Not that they have an earache with the sore throat necessarily, more that when they swallow, the pain shoots up to the ears. So a little bit of difference there between it and Belladonna. And a definite aversion to swallowing anything that is hot, whether it's food or drinks. If they just go, give me something cold, but don't give me hot tea, then you know that it's going to be Phytolacca. And the pain is often felt way back at the root of the tongue. And again, that pain can extend to the ear. And there may also be a high fever, but it alternates with heat and chilliness, where with Belladonna, the chill doesn't happen until the fever breaks, typically. And there is a great exhaustion, similar to Arsenicum, but it's this alternating heat and then chill. So they pull the covers up because they're chilled, and then they throw them off. And there's sometimes anxiety. Now let's cover some cough remedies. Now I'm not going to go into detail with these like I did with the other ones because I knew I'd start running out of time. But again, the idea here is for you to have some ideas of things to have on hand. Now, this next little tip, when you have a child or an adult for that matter, who has croup, remember the word ash, A-S-H, S as in Sam, H as in Homeopathy Houston. The A is for aconite, then it's followed by spongia, and then it's followed by hepar sulf. So if your child wakes up with a croupy, barking cough, often they awaken very suddenly with that cough, and they're in a fear state. So you start with aconite. Aconite is a remedy for fear. And it's also something that's very good in the early stages of almost any illness, but especially if there is a fear state or if it follows something fearful happening to them, even a bad dream. So start with the aconite, and then often very quickly, this cough will start sounding very rough, like they're breathing through a sponge. So you want to switch to spongia, which is actually a remedy made from sponge. Not the rubber plastic ones that you buy, but real, actual animal-based sea animal sponges. And that, then, in order to get them to hawk up the mucus when they seem to be having difficulty breathing, you want to switch to hepar sulf. And these remedy changes may happen very, very quickly over just the course of, almost seconds to minutes to maybe an hour or so. So you want to observe when the changes occur. When the fear starts kind of settling down, often that's when you see them switch over to that breathing through a sponge stage. So you switch to the spongia, and then it's like they're coughing and coughing, but it's not a productive cough. So then you switch to hepar sulf. And again, all these remedies are actually in our remedy kit. They're commonly found in a lot of the over-the-counter remedy kits that you can buy online. So that's just a little croup tip. So aconite is for any ill effects of fear or fearfulness during the onset of most illnesses, but in particular, remember it for croupy coughs. Spongia is sponge, so if they sound like they're breathing or they say they feel like they're breathing through a sponge, so it's very strained and like it's being strained through a wet sponge, then that cough requires spongia. And then the hepar sulf helps the body eject almost anything that's difficult to expel, including infections around a foreign body or tough, strongly attached mucus like we find in croup. So it just helps loosen up that mucus and cough it up. Now, for really deep coughs, antimonium tartaricum is #1 remedy for unproductive but deep rattling coughs. because again, it too will help the body loose and expel the mucus, much like Hepar sulf. And because it will take a hacking and unproductive cough and make it more productive, if it's bedtime and you're worried about your child not being able to breathe well, or it's, quote, settling into the chest, as my mom used to say, go ahead and give the Ant Tart, even if it's bedtime. Just be aware that you want to try to give it through the day, but if you give it within an hour or so of bedtime, it may create that productive cough, and it may put off bedtime a little bit, because you want your child to sleep, but you also don't want them drowning in goop during the night. So kind of make that call, but just be aware it may increase the coughing, but it may make it a very productive cough, which brings up that mucus and brings the cough out of the chest. And that's what you're looking for. And Ant Tart is actually a remedy for drowning. Now, I personally have never had to try this, and I pray that I never will. But it literally will also help with coughs where the person feels like they're so weak that they can't cough anything up. It will literally cause the body to cough up the water, even if the lungs are so full that they can't cough, quote unquote. So it's worth a try. It probably could save lives, but I'm not allowed to suggest that as a cure for drowning, for heaven's sakes, but you never know. All right, Ant Tart, again, is for coughs that are rattling, but unproductive. And so the other ones that I suggest, Causticum and Drosera, as well as Ant Tart, are also for coughs where it feels as if you can't get enough of a deep breath to then cough up the mucus, which of course would happen in a drowning. But sometimes people feel like they are drowning, and you'll be able to choose from Causticum or Drosera and Ant Tart. If there is a deep, raspy cough, then if it's rough and sounds like a wet sponge being squeezed, you want to go with Spongia, but some other remedies are Bryonia and Spongia. Now, dry coughs are also common. So some of the most common remedies for dry coughs are going to be aconite, Arsenicum album, and Bryonia, especially where there might be a little dizziness with the illness. That's one little keynote there. I didn't go into Bryonia. But also Drosera, which is it is a common whooping cough remedy where you have these paroxysms of cough until they completely run out of breath, followed by a noisy inhale where there's that telltale whooping, which is where whooping cough or pertussis gets its name. I'm not going to try to demonstrate this because I am still at the tail end of my own cold, and I want to be able to finish this webinar. Normally I would actually demonstrate this, but it is an inhale where they go, but I'm not going to go beyond that. Spongia, dry but raspy constricted cough. So Spongia works for both deep and dry coughs, dry tickly coughs. And phosphorus is another one for cough. It's one of our favorite cough remedies, and it's for any cough where it is in particular made worse or brought on by laughing, or if they're coughing and it sounds like the person is laughing. And often I've noticed that the phosphorus constitutional type, and not getting personal here, but my business partner is definitely a quintessential phosphorus constitutional type. And frequently she'll try to talk through a cough when she has one. And it will sound as though there's a laughing. I'm not sure I can even duplicate that, so I'm not even going to try. But it does sound, it's a laughing cough. It can be for both deep and dry coughs. Phosphorus is always worth a try. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. Now let's talk about where can you get your hands on these. Now, you can buy them at health food stores individually. You'll probably spend somewhere between $6 and $8 or $10 for individual remedies if you get them at a health food store. Or you can often buy individual remedies online. But our best recommendation is to possess a remedy kit that contains all of these and many more. And yes, there is a sales pitch coming, but it's because we want you to be comfortable with homeopathy. We do have a kit that we had custom put together because over the years we found that there were certain remedies and certain kits that our clients never needed. And then there were certain remedies that we really wished were in them. So this is kind of our quintessential choice. It's produced by our sister company, Homeo Health Incorporated, and we call it Homeopathy in a Box Brands, user-friendly homeopathy. And this is a 50 remedy kit. We have 47 30C remedies, plus we have Belladonna in both a 30 and a, I'm sorry, no, we don't. We have it only in a 200C. We have aconite in a 200C, and we have ignatia in a 200C. And it's unusual to find a mix of potencies in a kit, but because this is the culmination of my colleagues, professional colleagues, and I, over time, we customized it for what we observed in our clients and what they often needed, and we would have to send it out extra. So we said, hey, you know what, let's customize a kit. So a remedy kit is like having a 24/7 self-care emergency clinic in a box at home. So whether it's our kit or somebody else's, you know, just having a kit is a lot of stuff to try to work with. So you've got a lot of things that cover not just colds and flu, but everything from food poisoning and diarrhea to hangnails and, you know, even our autistic kids, there are remedies in there that they sometimes need. And we also suggest some particular consumer or combination products. We strongly suggest that everybody should have Oscillococcinum. It is a homeopathic flu remedy. It's put out by Barone. We carry it in our office. You can buy it online. It's available in a lot of different places. And as I said at the beginning, for prevention, I personally take a few pellets 2 or 3 times a week as a general tonic during flu and cold season. I always take it in close quarters, such as flying, which I have done recently and forgot to take my Oscillococcinum. Put a few pellets in a water bottle and sip as soon as possible at the onset of any viral type symptoms. So whether it's the flu or the cold, the minute you start feeling the body aches or the fever, it really will help in conjunction with everything else you're doing to shorten the duration. Cold Calm is a combination of a lot of the remedies we've talked about and a few that we did not. It is, again, a Barone product. It's a combination for colds. And frankly, when I don't want to carry a remedy kit because I've already got too many other carry-ons or something, I never leave home without it because it also has Arsenicum album in it as one of the remedies. So if I were to get bad food, I just take Cold Calm. Even though it's aimed at colds, the Arsenicum in it, a single remedy that you know you need in a combination is still going to work. So again, combining remedies is not only no sin, it can come in real handy. And then a few more suggestions. Throat Calm, I only just discovered by accident when I was traveling and I didn't have any Cold Calm with me. And I went to my favorite little health food store in a small town I was visiting, and they were out of Cold Calm. And I thought, well, I do have a scratchy throat. And as the day went on, it was very fortuitous that I think it was a God incidence that they had Throat Calm. And I looked at the remedies and I went, well, there's enough overlap with my symptoms of my cold. I'm going to go ahead and get it. I will tell you, I went into a massive sore throat that night. I took one of these. I took 2 of them in 15 minutes. I took one and 15 minutes later took a second, and it literally knocked out my sore throat and it did not come back. So it is amazingly effective for acute sore throats. Or you can combine the remedies we talked about. And for cough remedies over the counter, Barone makes one called Chestol. It's in a honey base. Sometimes moms don't like the honey for little bitty ones. I've never seen it be a problem, and I assure you this is very pure. I personally used it with my kids, and they didn't die of, honey poisoning, which there is no such thing. It's, again, another FDA much ado about nothing. Or B&T, which stands for Barachiantophyl, has a group of different cough formulas for both children and adults. They have a children, a nighttime, and a bronchial, and most health food stores are going to carry these if they're of any size at all, or have a fair number of homeopathic remedies. All right, now we do have a special offer to get y'all started. If you are interested in purchasing our favorite 50 remedy kit that I just showed you, including all of those in this presentation, it's $135 post-paid. It includes our free quick reference guide, and it has 50 different remedies. As I said, it has 47 that are in 30C potency and 3 that are in a 200C. It covers coughs, colds, flu, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, and literally hundreds of other symptoms. And there's a picture of it. And if you order it before midnight on the 31st, which is Halloween, we're including a free cold calm with it. If you order it after that and you still want the kit, then you will get the kit, but the cold calm would be an extra cost. So we're throwing in cold calm because of this webinar and because we want people to have things they're comfortable to grab off the shelf at any moment, because as we all know, Murphy lives at our homes, and if your kids get sick, it won't be when the doctor is available or the homeopathic pharmacy or the homeopath's office. So you want to have them on hand. So we are offering this special offer. And I'm going to put up a link here where you can click on it. If you'll give me just a moment. You should see it on the right side of your screen. And if you just click on the blue button, it will take you to a form that you fill out, which is our order form. And we will get these out to you within the next 2 or 3 days. We are still a little backed up on our shipments because of our move, but I think we've pretty much caught up. So probably you'll get these within 2 business, or they will be shipped within 2 business days. So $135 includes the kit and the postage and handling. Plus, if you order by midnight on the 31st, we'll throw in a free cold calm. So I hope that that will be helpful to you. I want to cover just a few more practical tips. I'm going to leave that offer up there. Just some ideas about some of the things that can kick in and cause homeopathy not to work. If your child has a lot of congestion, you may be using a chest rub, which will carry strong menthol or eucalyptus or sometimes mints. Those strong odors will actually antidote any of the remedies that you're trying to use. So you might want to avoid those when you are using homeopathy. Also, the nebulizing of essential oils. Most of the oils that you're going to be told to use in that realm are, again, going to be something along the lines of the menthol, eucalyptus, mints, maybe even lavender, things with very strong odors. Not only can they antidote the remedies from working when you take them, but if you store essential oils in the same cabinet with your homeopathic remedy kit, which is an investment, and we know that, you don't want to do that because the odors from those oils will actually kill, if you will, the effectiveness of the homeopathic remedies right in the bottles. So if you use essential oils, don't use the two together. Don't put a foot in both worlds, because you're basically going to be wasting your homeopathy. Homeopathy won't cause essential oils or drugs not to work, but drugs and essential oils and even some herbals can cause homeopathy not to work. Homeopathy uses symptoms as a means to cleanse and rebalance, where herbals and drugs are antipathic or against the symptoms. They're pushing the symptoms down, where homeopathy is using those symptoms to quickly cleanse and rebalance the system. So you don't want to be working at cross purposes by trying to mix, oils and drugs and chest rubs and herbals all at the same time with your homeopathy. Give the homeopathy a real serious chance by not antidoting. And so if you or your child do become sick, allow the body time to rest and heal itself. And I am going to tell you, I took this advice. I basically laid around Saturday and Sunday, and I would not be doing this webinar if I had been as sick as I was when I first came down with my cold. Stay warm and dry and in bed. And our society really is very negative about this. Sadly, kids have like a 3-day window, or then you have to have a doctor's excuse why they're missing more time. Well, sometimes it takes more time than 3 days to get over a cold or the flu, for sure. And then they go back and they spread it to everybody else. But oh well, they've taken enough, ibuprofen or acetaminophen to drive down the fever, so they look good, and then they go back to school and they feel awful, and they're spreading it to everybody else. And they're not healing. Rest is huge. Also, if you get a cold or the flu, but a cold in particular, avoid all dairy because it tends to drive up the histamine levels, which means you're going to have more mucus, more congestion, more cough. So avoid dairy. That will really speed things along. Do drink a lot of liquid, whether it's hot or cold. Liquids are great. Chicken soup is a great thing, or chicken broth. Your great-grandmother was, right. Warm liquid really does help. Don't drink large amounts of alcoholic beverages, although the hot toddy might be acceptable for adults. But don't try to push yourself or your child to get fully back into routine until at least the body aches and fever are entirely gone, without remedies or drugs. Covering it up with a drug just means it's going to prolong the length of time that you or your child is going to be sick. And I've seen this for too many times over 20 years. All right, so if you'd like more information on homeopathy in general, our video library, now a lot of it's going to talk about our work with autism, but we have videos up about tips for allergies, for tantrums, for sleep, and some of these are also involved with our autism, but there's still good tips there for anybody. We've got videos about detoxification, why that's important, urinary tract relief, autism information, Lyme information, information on gut dysbiosis or yeast infections, quote unquote, as well as we did a webinar about a month ago that we are going to soon add to our video library, or if you're on our list, you probably got a link for that replay. So childhood ear infection tips, and that's coming soon to our website. But if you go to this www.homeopathyhouston.com/video-library, then you can find our videos. We really want you to make homeopathy a part of your family's healthy lifestyle, and that's why we're doing these videos. And of course, if you've got any sort of chronic illness or you feel like you're in over your head, give us a call. We do phone consults around the country. We have got clients all over the world. That said, if you are outside of the U.S., we cannot make this offer to you. The shipping would be much higher for us to ship a kit, but contact our office anyway if you're interested, and we will make arrangements and we'll tell you what the shipping cost can be. But we are known for our work with autism, pandas, and developmental disabilities, but we are a general client practice. And we really want people to love homeopathy. We are also ambassadors for that world. All right, I am going to go back to my chat and see, are there any questions here? There have been some good questions I've tried to answer. Let me talk about the, just real quickly, housekeeping type things. Yes, there will be a replay notice. You will get a link that will be sent out in the next couple of days, and you can watch this over and over. We will eventually, it takes us about a month to get all of the editing and so forth done and move these to our website, to our video library. but you will get the link to the replay. I believe fast forward works for that, so you can go through what you've seen. Okay, good question. Do I feel that all essential oils will antidote or just the ones I list? The strong ones, lavender, mints, eucalyptus, menthols, or anything that smells strong like that, I have seen them antidote the remedies, both in storage as well as just simply render our remedies useless. I get it that essential oils have made a big splash in the world. I've never seen it cure autism. I've never seen it cure chronic illness. I am not a fan of essential oils particularly. And I will tell you that there was a combination of essential oils that I'm not going to mention it because I believe it is a proprietary name and I don't want to cast aspersions by any means, but I once got the flu. I was taking a Phytolacca and I woke up in the morning not feeling well. I had a full day of clients. I canceled my clients. I started taking a Phytolacca and I had a regular massage scheduled for that day. And I went to my massage therapist. And again, I was sipping on a water bottle until I got to my massage full of Phytolacca. And she said, I'm going to do raindrop therapy, which used a very strong combination of oils, one of which was peppermint oil, but it had others. I think it had myrrh and frankincense and a number of different oils in it. And I can't point my finger to any one, but the peppermint stood out in my mind. And she did the massage, and I kind of started feeling worse when I got done. And, oh, well, I'm detoxing. You know, I've been taking remedies. By the time I got home that evening, I felt so bad. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be down for a week with this thing and my remedies aren't working. So I'm taking off my clothes to get my pajamas on, and I got this huge whiff of the peppermint oil and went, oh my gosh, I've antidoted my own remedies. So I jumped in a hot shower, and by the time I had gotten that odor off of me, and before I even hardly toweled off, I could tell that my Phytolacca was already kicking back in. I quit using, I didn't take any of the oils home with me. I just started sipping like a mad person on that bottle of water. And by the next morning, I got up, had no symptoms, was a little tired, but I went to work and it never hit me. So I do know for a fact from personal experience, I've never been a fan of essential oils since. And frankly, from my perspective and my personal experience, homeopathy can do just about anything I need it to do. So I just don't use them. They still are antipathic, as are herbs. They make the symptoms go away, but they can be masking of those symptoms instead of trying to use them to heal. Okay. Any more questions? Looks like I think we've covered most of them. We talked about the Belladonna. All right. Well, our special offer again, let me make sure that is up there. The special offer is good through 11:59 p.m. On Halloween night. And so, don't let it haunt you that you didn't make the time to buy the kit and get the special offer of the free cold calm. I'm sorry, very bad pun, but I had to do something for levity. This is a heavy subject, colds and flu season. But I hope that you have enjoyed it. I thank you for your time. If there is anything that we can ever do to help you or your family, we're here for all of your family's health needs. We focus on autism and developmental delays and pandas, but we are very much a teaching practice. We are very much teaching our clients how to use homeopathy and not be afraid of ruining everything that we've done for them. Just give us a call, 713-366-8700. Our phones are answered Tuesdays through Fridays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. We do work across state boundaries. We work across international boundaries. Again, if you are an international client, I'm sorry, we're going to have to charge you more for the shipping and it will take longer to get to you. But we would be more than happy to work with any of you. So one last check of any last minute questions. The remedies in the kit, the size of the bottle, it is very tiny. I believe it is, let me tell you the exact amount. The size of the bottle is a 1/2 dram bottle. However, within that half dram, we use the small granule sized remedies. So 1 or 2 granules out of, I think one time I actually had somebody count them. There are about 100 granules. So pretty much if you don't spill them or you don't use more than 2 or 3 per dose, you've got a pretty long lifetime for that remedy kit. That is pretty much the standard size of, when you get the big plastic tubes. First of all, I'm not a fan of plastic. Ours are in glass bottles. But when you get the tubes at the health food store individually, they're going to have much larger, kind of a BB size pellet. So the number of pellets that are in our half dram bottles are actually more than the number of pellets, which are about 80 to 90 in one of the big, like the green or the blue tubes that you might get individually. So the kits actually will typically last longer. The individual remedies in there will typically last longer. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been a bit of a marathon. We've gone an hour and a half, a little over, but I appreciate your kind attention, your patience. I hope that you will share your links with other people. We want people to be healthy as much as they can for cold and flu season and the rest of the year. And we want people to love homeopathy. And that is why we are offering these as sort of a free public service. We hope that you will help educate others and enjoy the freedom and the health freedom of homeopathy. We also hope that you will stay on top of some of the attacks on homeopathy that are going on right now in the media, and get involved politically by contacting your representatives and telling them that, you know, homeopathy is safe medicine and it has been well regulated. Its manufacture has been well regulated in this country since the 1920s. And nobody's ever died of a homeopathic remedy. And I hope that you will help spread that news and call and write your representatives to keep homeopathy available for everybody. Thank you again for your time. Have a great day, and do sign up. If you go to our website, you can sign up if you're not already on our email list. We will let you know when we're doing more of these, when we have specials, or just generally information available for autism, for developmental delays, for colds and urinary tract, all kinds of things. We want you to enjoy good health through homeopathy. Thank you again for your time.